The quick new wizard interview for creating a program in the quick new wizard allows for the placing sequence type to be either standard or bulk. This video pertains to placing parts in the standard placing sequence type. Please view the video for explaining the bulk sequence type if that is required. A standard selection allows for up to 16 separate placing locations to be parts to be released sequentially at up to 16 different place locations prior to returning to the mold to pick up the next set of parts for placing. To input the number of placing positions in a standard sequence type, select the number of placing positions. From the keypad, you will see that a minimum to maximum setting of 1 to 16 is available. In this example, we'll select 2 placing positions, input that value, and select Enter. The default setting for placing parts in a standard sequence type, it will be vacuum. Available, though, is the selection for holding the parts with gripper only or vacuum only, or selecting vacuum and gripper to hold the parts. Based on this selection, the part monitoring available to you would be either vacuum and gripper monitoring. If gripper is selected only, then only gripper monitoring will be available, or vacuum and vacuum monitoring only. Answer the monitoring for part confirmation correctly, which is required in your program. And then you can select whether you need to palletize or not at each location by selecting the yes. All part placing locations will allow for a palletizing program. A no answer will release the parts at the place location at the same location each time. Or you can select to palletize and choose to select each individual location, whether you should palletize at that location or not. A no answer has no palletizing or stacking at any location. A yes answer palletizes at all locations, or a select individually allows for the selection at each placing location. You will notice that based on the number of placing positions, an interview page will be for each placing location, which allows for configuring the specific place location. When you change the number of placing locations, an additional placing location will be added to the interview process. Once the general placing information has been concluded in the interview, proceed to placing position 1 interview page, and here it will allow you to configure the hardware used for holding and placing the parts for placing position 1. To do this, select the Configure tab, and based on your selection on the previous page for what equipment is holding the parts, if both vacuum and gripper was selected, then the type of equipment, you choose the type of equipment you're configuring currently, and from the equipment list, based on the robot configuration, the available vacuums to be used for placing the parts at position 1. So in this case, we'll use the example of both vacuum and grippers holding the parts. Vacuum 1 will be inserted into the handling group for placing position 1. To add the gripper, select the type, select gripper, and from the available grippers, select the gripper used for placing position 1 handling group. This handling group has been created. Select Close. Since we selected to individually select whether to palletize at each position, we can then say whether this location requires a palletizing program, yes or no. At this location, do we want to wait for the conveyor belt, meaning each time we go to placing position 1 prior to descending and releasing the part at the conveyor, do we want to wait for the conveyor belt to stop, yes or no? And if that's the case, and you have more than one conveyor configured on the robot, which this example does, then you can select which conveyor that you're waiting to stop for and insert that into the handling group for the conveyors. If only one conveyor is configured on the robot, then the conveyor selection question is not available. That conveyor, that individual conveyor, will either allow you to stop for placing the part or not without having to configure the conveyor number. Indexing the conveyor after the part placed allows you to determine whether the conveyor should index for a specific amount of time prior to the next part location. Selecting the appropriate radio button would allow you to also to select which conveyor is going to be indexed after the part drop. If, again, only one conveyor is configured to the robot, then the conveyor selection will not appear. It's only if you have multiple or reversing conveyors in the work cell. Once you have configured placing position 1, continue with the same format for the specific number of placing positions that you have chosen and answer the interview questions appropriately. This is for placing in the standard sequence type. Please view the bulk sequence video if that is required.